Welcome to Public Safety Talk Radio, the podcast for all of our heroes of public safety, including law enforcement professionals, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, and more. The show is produced by the POCUA and is founded upon its Soundness Initiative. This episode is sponsored by the Finest Service Organization, a provider of line of duty death loan protection through many of our POCUA institutions. I am Ken Bader, your host for Public Safety Talk Radio, and yes, I have another great guest here. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Florence Chung. Actually, that may be a little bit different because she just recently got married. In fact, you know what? We won't even talk about any of the other questions. We'll talk about her honeymoon, but welcome to Florence Chung. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She launched a couple of nonprofits that are very important to our law enforcement friends out there. One is Engage Public Safety, and we're definitely going to talk about that. She also launched Police Foundation Partners, which I definitely want to hear a lot about. And she has a long and very distinguished list of jobs and expertise that I can go on and on in terms of public service, and we'll certainly talk about that. But let me stop talking. Florence, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
It's my pleasure. And yeah, let's, to heck with heck with Engage Public Safety and everything else. Congratulations on your new marriage. You look happy.
Thank you. Thank you. We're just a couple weeks in. And so the honeymoon is coming up.
So you're one of those folks that got married and then you're doing the honeymoon sometime later on. I get it.
Later, get things sorted. So we're leaving next week for Cabo. It should be great.
Cabo. There you go. I was going to say you're going someplace nice like Victorville, Apple Valley, something. Yeah.
Need a little beach and some sun, In Los Angeles, we have that right here. Living on the side. But yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I always joke with my wife when we go someplace, especially when it's someplace like Hawaii or a location like that. I'll say, isn't this the same damn ocean that we have like less than a mile from our house?
Right. It's the same Pacific Ocean. It's not even the Atlantic. It's not on that side either. So yes, but different sand, Ken.
Yeah.
Different sand.
I get it. It's a different sand, different experience. But all right, well, let's talk about Engage Public Safety because I believe you founded that in October. What was the motivation for that? What was the mission? Tell us.
Yeah. It's brand new. October 2020 during COVID. Yeah. So as we all know, once the protest started in the summer, it was a very intense summer for the line of work that I'm in, working with law enforcement, between law enforcement and communities. And, there was a phone call I received from someone who said, we have a group of Gen Zers, college students from across the country that are really upset by what is happening. And they want to be part of the solution. What can we do? You work with law enforcement. What do we do here? And this was just maybe 2 weeks after the death of George Floyd and the protests were going on across the country. So I said, if these young people want to be a part of the solution, they have to understand the problem first, right? So I said, let's get them in front of some law enforcement executives and let's hash out what they're thinking. And so we hosted what ended up being a really powerful conversation between Gen Zers and young millennials from across the country and 5 police chiefs from across the country. And fast forward, because of that powerful conversation, these students started a committee and said they wanted to do more. Right? He said that was a great one. A lot of myths were busted. I learned a lot. There was one student who said, I was moved by the conversation. They thought that law enforcement would come into the call on a Zoom call with everybody's faces on the screen with their arms crossed saying, what is it, with a bad attitude, which tells you what kind of assumptions they held. Right? And they were so blown away by the fact that we had the Charlottesville chief, we had the assistant chief from the NYPD, we had so many executives come to the table and say, we can do better, we will do better. Yeah. And gave these students some hope. So fast forward in October, what we did was we launched this nonprofit, Engage Public Safety. The mission is to engage everyday people, the public, in the public safety challenges in our cities because Ken, there right before last year, I think there were people within our communities that cared about public safety, but after 2020, there are a heck of a lot more people who are paying attention to policing, public safety, and wanting it to be better. And so we started the nonprofit so that we can provide those opportunities for people who want to engage in the public safety conversation, to do it in a constructive and positive way. So we bring all sides, all kinds of stakeholders together to the table through this nonprofit, through, say, law enforcement, community activists, college students. We've brought together college basketball coaches from across the country.
Nice.
So what we found last year was that there were a lot of people with renewed energy and passion for wanting to get engaged, civically engaged in their communities and in City Hall with their elected officials and police departments, but they just didn't know how. So our nonprofit launched so that we could provide the how for people who wanted to do something positive.
Yeah, I applaud you for starting it, and I applaud the folks, whether Gen Z, millennial, or any generation for that matter, that wanted to and actually did get involved in this program, because I think there's a lot of ignorance out there. Not stupidity, but ignorance. And I don't understand. I'm not a fan, obviously, of defund the police. I'm also not a 100% fan of defend the police. I think that there are changes that could be made, and I'm all for any change that is going to increase the probability of our officers getting home to their families safely on a much more regular basis. So I think that there is something there, and it's killing that ignorance and understanding exactly what the job is.
Yeah. I think there's ignorance. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there as well. A lot of, especially amongst, I would say in the social media generation, those who rely heavily on social media, they're relying on those headlines. They're not necessarily going beyond those headlines to research or figure out if something is real or not, or fact-based or not. And so these narratives just kind of like runaway trains, right? And they go. And I know there's frustration on all parts, all sides, because it's not really fact-based. And so, the projects that we've been working on, they're rooted in this idea of, let's explore all sides and perspectives. Let's open our minds and see what these other perspectives are saying, and at the very least, hear from them so that you can, from an informed point of view, if you're trying to make some kind of difference, or you're seeking solutions and you want to be part of the solution, right? Then you have to understand what the problem is from various sides, understand all the arguments. And so that was our starting point. And that's why we say we're nonpartisan, we're neutral, fiercely neutral, which is hard to do these days, Ken.
Yeah.
But trying to stay neutral so that we can bring these various perspectives to the table and have people who want to get involved explore, give them all the different perspectives, have them explore and have them come to their own conclusions about what might be best.
Yeah, and I also applaud you for getting law enforcement involved in this. I just, from personal experience here in Long Beach, California, shortly after the George Floyd incident and the riots and so forth, and I was personally very disappointed to see what happened in my own city here where I live. There are a number of officials here in Long Beach that put together a number of Zoom meetings to talk about, well, in essence, what should public safety look like? Let's get input. And I was really disappointed in that there were no law enforcement representation at all in those meetings. And I even made the comment of, how are we going to change a system without the people in the system involved in that change? That doesn't make any sense to me. And that opinion was was responded to in a very harsh way, Florence.
Oh boy, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I understand. I've seen that as well. But I'm of your mindset that you have to include law enforcement in the process. You can't, they have to be part of the equation. You can't just leave them out and then the community members gather and say, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to change.
Yeah.
And then issue the police department a list of demands and saying, you have to adhere to this, right? So I know it's not popular to include law enforcement. I think I can somewhat see why there are segments of the community that may be uncomfortable with including law enforcement because of the trauma and just kind of the experiences they've had and just the perspectives they hold and their lived experiences. However, at the end of the day, if we look at it, long term, if we change, it's going to take a while. And there's no Band-Aid fix, although we're seeing all kinds of Band-Aid fixes come up. I guess it's better than nothing, but we have to think about the long game. And over time, we need to bring law enforcement to the table with community members and other stakeholders in order to get real change done, right? And because we have to bring them along. No one likes to have change forced down anyone's throat, right?
Exactly.
You have to, it has to be an inclusive process with the stakeholders that we're talking about, the police officers. And usually it's also the police chiefs are involved, the commissions, the city elected officials, the activists in the community, but how about even the police officers themselves? I know the police departments are a hierarchical, institution. However, it's the beat cop. I would love to have beat cops, ordinary officers involved in these conversations.
Exactly. Now a word from our sponsor, the Police Officers Credit Union Association. Coming this October 2021 is the Public Safety Business Summit in Savannah, Georgia, a program specifically created for organizations that serve first responders. What you will experience is a high level of networking and collaboration among like-minded leaders who are in the business of serving first responders. What you won't get are a series of boring lectures with no interactivity, ridiculous golf outings that are only appealing to a few attendees, or a couple of retreaded subjects that you can hear at any credit union league event that are just thrown into the curriculum. We offer an engaging agenda where attendees even help to determine the content during the actual conference based on their unique needs. If you run a business, a credit union, or a nonprofit that specifically serves first responders, then the Public Safety Business Summit is for you. For more information, go to www.policecreditunions.com or call 331-300-9889. We hope to see you in Savannah this fall. One thing I've noticed, in maybe I'm ignorant or my circles aren't big enough, but what I've noticed is that 8 or 9 out of every 10 police officers that I talk to are open to change to some extent. Even to use a very black and white example, why are we sending police to everything? Yeah, I mean, if there's an armed robbery, I want cops that are armed coming to help me, okay? But if it's a homeless situation, or maybe even some domestic disputes, that's a little bit of a gray area for me. But somebody's homeless and sitting outside of a home. Do we really need to send armed cops to that? Maybe there is an opportunity to not have the police officer profession be this catch-all basket. It's like, well, we don't know exactly who to send. Cops are mobile, let's send them. Maybe this is an opportunity to focus the expertise of law enforcement in certain areas. And the ones that don't make sense, maybe we do need to send a social worker. Maybe we do need to send an EMT. Maybe that's the better choice. Have you been hearing any of that in your discussions?
Oh, you see me nodding, Ken, because you know what? I hear that all the time, and I've been hearing that for years. for more than a decade. So, when I talk to whether they're police officers or police, command staff, they always say, how come police are the catch-all for all
Yeah.
of these problems, right? All of society's failures and the problems that get dumped on the police. And so, and they get blamed when things go wrong or things are not going well in our society, and that's not fair. And so last year, with all the conversations around mental health and homelessness and what you just talked about, should cops be going to every single call out there? We call cops for the darnest things, right?
Yeah.
So I've heard people say, I think the community citizens need to be trained on when to call cops and when
Yeah.
not to dial 911. That is included as well, all right? But I think, from what I've heard, Ken, I have not heard one law enforcement official say that they want to or they think that it should be police who respond to the homelessness calls or the mental health calls on their own, because and they would gladly transfer those duties
Yeah.
to other city agencies, if you will. So I think there's a lot of common ground.
Is your hot pocket done? I heard a bell.
No, I can't seem to get all the notifications off. Here.
You look like you're in good shape, so it's probably not a hot pocket. But anyhow,
In this house. Organic.
seaweed, that type of stuff. All right, I'll move on. But yeah, it's interesting in that I have the privilege of having talked to many law enforcement professionals, both active and retired, and many of them have said that they're usually the first ones to arrive on almost any call because they're mobile. Use the heart attack as an example. Many times the police officer is the first to arrive because they may be 3 blocks away and the EMTs are close, but they're like the firehouse is 2 miles away, so they may take some time. Personally, if I'm having a heart attack and I see a cop first, I'm going to be a little pissed. I want to see the EMTs.
I'll say, unless you're in a city where the police cars actually have those defibrillators in their trunk, which leads me to this other point of there are police foundations out there that have, and citizens have come together to fund defibrillators for police cars, so that, because the cops are typically the ones that are the first responder on the scene, and it may, that might be the life or death situation where if it takes a whole minute for firefighters or paramedics to arrive, but the police officer is there, he pulls the defibrillator out from behind in the trunk, and there you go. So I know many police departments that have opted to go that route.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you've done this before because you're giving me a perfect segue here, because I've worked with a number of police foundations, and I've heard that they've had programs, fundraisers, what have you, to get certain medical equipment to police officers for that very reason. And you launched Police Foundation Partners. Was that in conjunction to Engage Public Safety, or was that a whole different endeavor that came to mind completely?
The Police Foundation Partners as an initiative, that vision was in my head for years and years before we actually launched January 2020. This was before Engage Public Safety.
Okay.
And, we were working with Police Foundations. I was a consultant with many police departments, helping them launch brand new police foundations when they didn't have one. And so we launched several, and I would go to IACP conferences and sit in, it's a once a year conference, and there were a lot of great resources offered to police departments who wanted to either start a new police foundation or grow their fledgling small foundation. But how about the rest of the year? And so we thought, why don't we bring all our resources and our knowledge and help America's police foundations grow, right? They can start one. We can help them start one if they don't have one, but let's help them grow, because most of America's police foundations are fairly small.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish we were all like LA, New York, Atlanta, with big police foundations that bring in millions of dollars and are professionally run by staff.
Yeah.
That's not the case for most of America's police foundations. And so we launched Police Foundation Partners as a way to, it's a network, it's a community of police foundations and their leaders. So all the executive directors and people who lead these organizations are invited to be members of Police Foundation Partners. So think of it as an association, if you will, of police foundations. And so we bring them together on a monthly basis via Zoom, and it creates this peer-to-peer network and an exchange. And so, there was a police foundation in Northern California that I was working with, whose police chief came to them one day and said, I want to start a scholarship program for high school kids. Police Foundation, can you make it happen for me? That executive director called me and said, is there another police foundation in the country that does this, or do I have to reinvent the wheel? And I knew, because I work with many police foundations, I knew that there was one in Southern California that had a very successful scholarship program that did wonders for police community relations. So I connected that executive director with the other executive director. They talked, they shared resources. No reinventing of the wheel had to happen, right? But police foundations don't have ton of resources to pay staff and consultants and all that. So that's where the vision came, and said, let's support America's police foundations to have them become stronger organizations, stronger platforms for community engagement. Because who's involved with police foundations? They're business community members, business leaders, civic leaders in a given city who care about public safety and want to support the local police department. And so once we launched Engage Public Safety, then as the official nonprofit, we brought Police Foundation Partners underneath the nonprofit as an initiative. But that was, when it first launched, it was a pro bono, community investment project that I had started under my consulting company, the Hetty Group. So it lived there for about a year or so. And then now it's a full-blown nonprofit initiative, and we're happy to support police foundations across the country. Right now we have about 33 cities involved with us.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Before COVID, when we actually had these things called events, you may have heard of them. They were called conferences and summits and things, and human beings came together many times in the same room. I think that they're trying to bring this nostalgia back a little bit later in 2021. But prior to that, the National Police Credit Union had put together a leadership conference for Police Foundation executives. And it just blew my mind, because you had it ran the whole gamut from, say, the Police Foundation in Wichita, which I think is basically a one-woman show. Great woman, don't get me wrong, but basically a one-woman show. And then you go to the Houston Police Foundation, and Tillman Fertitta of Landry's fame is basically, helping to make that happen, and everything in between. And it's like, wow. How do you manage to be able to provide the resources and guidance to a one-woman, one-man team, as well as the, we've got a board of 9 executives, and they're all well known, and we've got resources and everywhere in between. How do you manage that?
I know. You know what? So we have a lot of the larger foundations. Their executive directors, they're well funded. They have staff. They have a full-time person who's seasoned, professional. Some of them have a staff of 5 people, right? But like you said, there are a lot of one-woman, one-man shows. A lot of them are involved with us. So the larger foundations, right, are the ones that serve as kind of peer support. And they share a lot of their ideas. Washington, D.C. is very involved with us. San Diego, right? These larger foundations, they have been there and done that. And so they can share their journey with the police foundations that have one staff member, or oftentimes someone who's just part-time, not even full-time.
Yeah.
Part-time. And so what we do at Police Foundation Partners is provide a forum on a monthly basis for police foundations who are on all sections of the scale, right? For whether you've been around for 5 years but still a startup,
yeah,
or or some that just started up 6 months ago. We have someone from Quarryville, Pennsylvania, who joined, and they just started theirs. They've probably been around for about a year now. And then we have the San Diegos and the Washington D.C.s that can say, and the Philadelphias that come in and provide that information and that support. But what we're finding is that even the big ones, even the ones that have staff and have been around for a long time, they still have questions. They still find value in community, right? Coming together and saying, well, we just fundraise and support our own police department. Well, what's going on over there in that other city over there? What happened last year was that police foundations became a target.
Yeah.
Right? So the defund movement made its way over to target police foundations as well. And some police foundations had a really rough go of it last year. Being, their board members were attacked,
donors were attacked.
Donors were attacked on social media, etc. But we brought them together so that we had all kinds of Zoom calls and created a sense of community so that they can learn from each other, talk to each other, give each other a heads up, give each other advice on how to manage social media during really, really sensitive times for law enforcement, right? Those types of discussions are really valuable. And so this type of community, I think, is really helpful because at the end of the day, we want these organizations to do really well because they are a vehicle, right, for community engagement, for the public to get involved in public safety. If they're floundering or not doing so well or getting themselves in a pickle, then that doesn't help. So if we're able to provide that a national level support by forming this association and having them, meet monthly and providing that sense of, hey, I'm not alone in my city, just running this foundation by myself. We're hoping that the vision is, we're hoping that we will all become stronger over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would think that a police foundation would be one, not the only, but one of the organizations that could possibly be the catalyst to bring a law enforcement agency and a community together.
Yes. Perfectly positioned, actually, in my mind.
Yeah.
They're so perfect. I think a lot of police foundations are misunderstood. I don't think that they've done a great job of selling themselves or marketing themselves or whatever we want to call it, positioning themselves.
Branding, yeah.
Yeah, branding. They think that they're a piggy bank for the police chief or that they're funding militaristic equipment, when a lot of these police foundations are funding police community related activities and programming that the city police department would not otherwise be able to afford, right? So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. They do come to the table with a lot of solutions that people have been talking about in the last year. It's just that people don't know about it because they're thinking, they see the word police and foundation in the name and they come up with all kinds of assumptions. So I think there's a way to go, a long way to go for police foundations to educate the community on how they can actually be a partner in bringing solutions to the table.
Yep, completely agree. So what's kind of the future? I mean, we have engaged public safety and police foundation partners, for that matter, that are basically fledgling. Not only are they only about a year or so old, some less, some more, coupled with the fact that they were created in COVID times, and now, knock wood, we may get to something that looks like normal. I think normal is dead, but something that looks more normal coming up. So what's the future for engaged public safety? What can we look forward to?
Yeah. I think, we're just wrapping up a project that we worked on since January, where we worked with the college students and the young millennials, so Generation Z, actually, from across the country. They came to us. Their organization represents, 44 college campuses across 40 states, Republican, Democrat, rural, urban, suburban, very representative. And they came together to produce this video podcast series, right?
Nice.
And we launched that on YouTube called Next Gen Talks. Next Gen Talks, the future of policing. And this is where they explored all the various perspectives from various stakeholders on what the future of policing can look like and should look like. And then these young people brought their perspectives to the table. So again, they informed themselves as to what the issues are. And then they came to the table. We had a virtual forum with 7 police chiefs from across the country. They came. Nice. And they talked with these Gen Zers on Zoom, and the Gen Zers said, this is what's important to us. This is, and they're our future leaders. They're the ones out protesting. They're the ones on social media right now. And they said, this is what's important to us with the future of policing. And then the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund and Museum, sometime this week, will be releasing a recap of that project. To their audience of, I believe, over 300,000 people within the law enforcement community to say, hey, hear what this next generation is saying. And let's not assume we might already know what these young people might be saying. Actually, I think we'd all be surprised. I've been working with law enforcement for 20 plus years and, and working with the community. And this project was so powerful in that meeting. It's on YouTube. I mean, if you can spare 2 hours to watch it, I mean, my goodness, people are so impressive. And there were so many takeaways, and I won't get into it. But my point is, I think if we talk about the future of policing, I talked about how, we all agree it's kind of a long road. However, the future of engaged public safety as an organization, we hope the future is bright because I think there's a need. People want to do something, right? But if they need a constructive way to move forward, we just are wrapping up this project. We're thinking of, we're in the works to start a new project in the city of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. We've been in talks with the Atlanta Police Foundation out there to work with the HBCUs, the college students from the historically Black colleges and universities in Atlanta, because they want to get involved. So the future for us is to continuously engage the public in public safety conversations. They might be virtual conversations where we bring together, maybe, there's a group out there. I talked about a lot of college students because that's the group that kept coming to us, right? Yeah. But there could be, and I talked about the basketball coaches from college campuses, but there might be the jujitsu community, or the horseback riders association. Whatever group out there that takes an interest.
Right. I want the given that my mom, who's retired, plays cribbage, I want the cribbage community to be involved. Can you make that happen, Florence?
Yes. If the cribbage community says we want to do something positive, we need an organizing force behind the scenes to get that done. We're here. We'll be your partner.
So if you want to be involved, instead of putting those damn pegs in that wooden board that I don't even know what the hell that is in cribbage, go call Florence and get involved. But I love what you're doing. It goes to one of the things I've been saying since this unfortunate George Floyd incident and the unrest and the divisiveness and all that other fun stuff has happened, is that I truly believe that there are 3 groups in this country. I think that there's a group that will support law enforcement sometimes nearly blindly. And that's not going to change. Unfortunately, I think that there's a group that will always be anti-cop. Mm-hmm. But I do believe there is a group, and it's a very, very large group that are somewhere in between, that you're not going to convince this anti-cop group that's just staunchly that way. but there are a bunch of people that are like, I want to learn. I want to be part of the change, and I don't like what's going on, but I think that there could be something better, and I want to work to make that something better. And I think that whether it's Gen Z, millennial, or those cribbage players, I think that that's where you're hitting with Engage Public Safety, and I think that that's awesome.
You hit the nail on the head, Ken, because there are a lot of people who will not say, I'm not anti-police. I don't subscribe to the overarching narratives that have been floating around. I am not anti-police and I am not anti-BLM. I'm just, I just want things to be better. And we have, even the students that were involved with us in our projects, they had family members that were in law enforcement, right? Friends that were in law enforcement, but they were still saying, we want to see change. And they were part of this conversation and this project. And those are the people I think will be the ones moving the needle. We talk about the future, the ones that are on the extremes that don't want to budge, there's no change happening there. But those that are coming to the middle and saying, okay, can we work with people here? The change is iterative. It might be slow, but we have to start somewhere. So we're here. We're on that long journey. We just started, but we are excited to be here and to fill that gap for those who are of that mindset that you just described, Ken. We'd be happy to work with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a long journey, but I'm glad you're on it, Florence, and I'm happy to go on that journey with you. Speaking of that, I could talk to you for another hour, but you have better work to do than to sit here and talk to me. So the last question that I have for you is for those folks, especially those folks possibly in that middle group that want to be part of the change and want to, in some way, shape, or form, be a part of Engage Public Safety. How best can they find you?
Yeah. Well, you can visit our website, engagepublicsafety.org. You'll find all the information there. Drop us a line, or people can email me directly, Florence@engagepublicsafety.org.
Perfect. And I will tell you that Florence actually does answer her emails. That's how she got on this show. And remember, it's .org. It's not .com or .net or .ca or .anything else. It is .org. So Florence, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Ken. I enjoyed this as well. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. And thank you to all of you who have either watched or listened to this episode of Public Safety Talk Radio. And we'll be back with you next week with another great guest. Public Safety Talk Radio is produced by the POCUA. POCUA is a consortium of financial institutions serving law enforcement as well as other first responders and public safety professionals. To learn more about our association and to find one of our credit unions or service providers near you, go to www.policecreditunions.com. And always remember, if you aren't working with one of our POCUA credit unions, you're just banking with an institution that just so happens to serve first responders. As a public safety professional, you and your family deserve better. Find a POCUA credit union today.